Your secret is in all the newspapers. That's what my best friend, Derek, said on the phone, like he was reading me the weather. I didn't scream, I didn't beg, I didn't even ask why. I just said, okay. Then I dealt with it, in a way he never saw coming. I'm Ethan, 33, and until 3 months ago I thought I had one of those rare lives where the people closest to you actually stayed loyal. I work in commercial real estate finance in Austin, Texas, the kind of job where you're always balancing numbers, risk, and someone else's ego. I'm not flashy, but I do well. I've got a steady career, a clean record, and I was engaged to Maya, 31, a pediatric nurse with the kind of calm confidence that makes a chaotic world feel manageable. In the beginning, it was stupidly good. Late-night tacos, weekend drives, inside jokes, and that warm feeling of, finally, I'm home. Derek was the constant in all of it. We met in college, survived the same broke years, and promised each other we'd never turn into the guys who stepped on people to climb. He was the best man at my engagement dinner, the guy who helped me move apartments twice, the brother who told me I deserved good things when I didn't believe it. He worked in PR and brand management, always networking, always smiling, always sliding through life like rules were optional. Yet somehow, I trusted him anyway. The shift started after I got promoted. Suddenly, I was dealing with larger deals, stricter compliance, and clients who treated every email like a legal document. I had less time, more stress, more responsibility. Maya tried to be patient, but you can only say, I understand, so many times before it starts to taste bitter. Derek, on the other hand, loved it. He'd clap me on the shoulder and say things like, "This is your season, man. You're finally playing in the big leagues." I thought he was proud of me. Now I realize he was studying me, like a safe he wanted to crack. Around that time, Derek introduced us to his new circle, people who talked like they were always being recorded. His girlfriend Tessa was the worst of them. Sharp smile, dead eyes, and a habit of turning every conversation into a competition. If Maya mentioned a hard shift at the hospital, Tessa would laugh and say, "Must be nice having job security." If I talked about work, she'd tilt her head and say, "Finance guys always have skeletons. That's why." Derek would just grin like it was a joke. He said that, like he was waiting for thing Derek knew was something back when we were broke and stupid and thought loyalty. In my mid-20s, I'd been involved in a private investment deal that later got wrapped up in a regulatory investigation. I wasn't charged. I wasn't even named publicly, but I'd testified as a cooperating witness, quietly, under legal protection. My lawyer was clear. As long as I stayed compliant and kept my mouth shut, my name would never surface. Derek knew because I'd told him during one of those late-night brother talks. He swore he'd take it to the grave. For a long time, nothing happened. Years passed. I built a career. I got engaged. Life moved on. Then, slowly, things around me started to feel off. A client backed out of a deal with no explanation. A lender suddenly decided to pass after weeks of enthusiasm. At a dinner party, a guy I'd never met made a strange comment about people with complicated pasts and laughed like it was an inside joke. Maya noticed it before I did. She asked if there was something I wasn't telling her. I told her no, because as far as I knew, there wasn't. The call from Derek came on a Tuesday morning. I was in my office, staring at a spreadsheet I'd already checked 3 times when my phone buzzed. I almost ignored it. Almost. When I answered, his voice was light, almost amused. "Hey, man," he said, "you might want to sit down." I asked him what was wrong. That's when he dropped it. "Your secret is in all the newspapers. Blogs, too. It's blowing up." I remember the silence afterward more than the words. My ears rang. My hands went cold. I asked him how. Just one word. How? He sighed, like I was inconveniencing him. "Things got out," he said. "Someone leaked old court docs. It happens." When I asked who, he paused a little too long. Then he said something that burned into my brain. "Look, man, it's not my problem anymore. You should have been more careful back then." Careful. Like I'd tripped and spilled a drink, not had my life detonate. Before I could respond, he added, "PR-wise, you're kind of radioactive now. I'd lay low." Within hours, my phone exploded. Maya's co-workers had seen the headlines. My firm put me on administrative leave, pending review. Clients stopped responding entirely. The story wasn't accurate, but it didn't need to be. It was messy, dramatic, and easy to misunderstand. That night, Maya sat across from me at the kitchen table, her hands wrapped around a mug she wasn't drinking from. She asked me why my best friend knew more about my past than she did. I didn't have a good answer. She didn't yell, she didn't cry. She just said, "I need space," and went to stay with her sister. The next few days felt like living underwater. Everything was slower, heavier, distorted. HR scheduled meetings that said nothing and meant everything. My attorney confirmed the worst part. The information circulating had come from a sealed cooperation summary that only a handful of people had ever seen. My name shouldn't have been there at all. Someone had gone out of their way to connect dots that were never meant to be connected. When I asked the obvious question, "Who?" my lawyer didn't answer directly. He didn't need to. The silence said, "Derek," louder than words. I tried calling Derek again. Straight to voicemail. I texted, "Read receipts off." Then, finally, he replied with a single line. "I can't be associated with this right now." That's when the betrayal fully landed, not because he leaked it, though he did, but because he'd already moved on to protecting himself. Later that night, a mutual friend sent me a screenshot. Derek had posted a story about cutting toxic people loose and choosing integrity over secrets. He tagged no one. He didn't have to. Everyone knew. The anger came in waves, but beneath it was something colder and far more dangerous. Clarity. I stopped reacting. I started observing. Derek wasn't just leaking for drama, he was positioning himself. His PR firm had recently pitched itself as a crisis management specialist for high-risk clients. My story gave him credibility. He was being quoted anonymously in articles as an industry source. He was feeding reporters just enough to keep the fire alive while keeping his own hands clean, or so he thought. While the world speculated, I went quiet. I hired a forensic investigator, pulled phone records, metadata, timelines. We traced emails sent from burner accounts back to IP addresses tied to a co-working space Derek used regularly. We found calendar overlaps. Him meeting journalists the same days new details surfaced. Then came the financial trail. Payments, small ones at first. Then larger consulting fees from outlets that claimed independence. It wasn't just betrayal. It was monetized betrayal. Around this time, Maya reached out. She didn't apologize. She didn't accuse. She just asked if what was being said was true. I told her the whole story, everything I'd never said out loud before. When I finished, there was a long pause. Then she said, "I don't think you're the villain here, but I don't know if I'm strong enough to stand in the blast radius." That hurt more than the headlines. Still, I respected her honesty. We agreed to put the engagement on hold, indefinitely. Losing Maya hurt, but it also cleared something in my head. I realized I had nothing left to protect except the truth. My career was paused, my reputation was shredded. And Derek was thriving. His firm's website suddenly featured a new case study about navigating reputational risk during financial controversy. He never used my name, but the timing was obvious. He was selling my pain as a portfolio piece. That's when I stopped thinking like a victim and started thinking like someone with nothing to lose. I pulled my savings statements and did the math. Between liquid cash, a matured investment account, and money I'd been planning to use for a wedding, I had just over $50,000 available without touching retirement. I asked myself a simple question. What would actually reach Derek? Lawsuits take years, press corrections get buried, apologies get ignored. Derek lived on image. Visibility was his oxygen, so I decided to take control of the narrative in the most public way possible. I didn't rush it. I consulted with a defamation attorney and a media law specialist. Everything I planned had to be factual, documented, and legally airtight. No accusations, no opinions, just verified truth. We compiled a timeline. Derek's access to sealed information, his communications with journalists, the financial benefits he gained afterward. Every claim backed by evidence. Then I hired a design firm, not cheap, but very good, and told them I needed one thing, a billboard people couldn't ignore. We chose the location carefully. Downtown Austin, right off the highway Derek used every morning. A massive digital billboard overlooking traffic that crawled just slowly enough for drivers to read every word. The design was simple: white background, black text, one headline-sized sentence, "The PR expert who leaked a friend's sealed testimony for profit." Below it, smaller text, "All claims documented, public records available." And at the bottom, a website URL I'd registered myself. The website went live the same morning the billboard did. It wasn't flashy, just clean, organized sections. Court documents, email metadata, payment trails, timelines, no commentary, no insults, just receipt. By noon, my phone started buzzing. By evening, Derek's firm pulled their site offline. Journalists who'd quoted him started asking me for statements. And Derek? Derek finally called. I didn't answer Derek's first call, or the second, or the third. When I finally picked up, I let the silence stretch until he spoke first. His voice sounded tight, controlled, the way people sound when they're trying not to panic. "You need to take it down," he said. Not please, not let's talk, just a command, like he still thought he was in charge. I told him I wasn't discussing anything over the phone, that if he had something to say, he could put it in writing, through a lawyer. He snapped. The mask slipped. He accused me of trying to ruin his life, of being vindictive, of not understanding how the media works. I reminded him that he understood it perfectly. That's why he'd used it against me. He tried a softer angle next, said he was under pressure, said people had been asking questions, and he didn't think it would blow up like that. Was almost funny. Derek had built his entire career on predicting blowback. The only thing he hadn't predicted was me refusing to stay quiet. The next day, the billboard made local news, then national. Bloggers started digging into Derek's past clients. Former colleagues came forward anonymously, confirming patterns, confidential leaks, strategic sources, selective outrage. His girlfriend Tessa locked her social media accounts. His firm released a statement denying everything while quietly removing his name from their leadership page. Meanwhile, my website traffic spiked so hard the server crashed twice. I upgraded hosting without blinking. This wasn't the time to cheap out. A week later, Derek was served with a civil complaint from one of the journalists he'd misled, who now faced legal exposure for publishing sealed information. Turns out, when you poison the well, everyone drinks from it eventually. I watched it unfold from a distance, calm in a way I hadn't felt in months. For the first time since that phone call, I slept through the night. No dreams, no anxiety, just silence. Maya reached out again after seeing the billboard. She said it was impossible to ignore, that she finally understood how deep the betrayal went, not just to me, but to the truth itself. We met for coffee. No promises, no pressure, just two people talking honestly. She told me she was proud of how I handled it. I told her I wasn't fighting to get my old life back. I was building a new one, piece by piece, without lies in the foundation. The fallout kept spreading. Derek's name became a liability. Clients quietly canceled contracts. Speaking invitations vanished. Industry group chats, ones I used to be excluded from, lit up with people dissecting the situation in real time. Someone leaked internal emails from his firm showing frantic damage control, partners arguing about who knew what and when. Derek went from being the guy everyone wanted in the room to the guy no one wanted associated with their brand. Reputation, once cracked, doesn't shatter loudly. It erodes in public. I didn't celebrate. I didn't gloat. I stayed disciplined. My attorney handled inquiries. I declined interviews that wanted emotion instead of facts. When a major outlet asked if I felt vindicated, I said no. I said I felt finished. Finished carrying someone else's lie. Finished letting silence be mistaken for guilt. That answer made the rounds because it wasn't dramatic, and drama was exactly what people expected. Professionally, things began to stabilize. My firm completed its review and reinstated me with conditions. Temporary oversight, compliance check-ins. But the unspoken accusation was gone. Clients who had disappeared resurfaced cautiously. A few even apologized. One told me, "We didn't know who to believe." I told him that was the point. Lies don't need to be perfect, they just need to be louder than the truth for long enough. Derek tried one last move. Through a mutual acquaintance, he floated the idea of a private resolution. No apology, no admission. Just an offer to make this go away if I helped shift the narrative. I declined without a counter. Some doors close so cleanly you don't even hear them shut. I took the billboard down the following week, not because he asked, but because it had done its job. The website stayed. Facts don't expire. I started rebuilding in quieter ways, morning runs along the river, cooking meals instead of eating stress takeout. Therapy twice a month, not because I was broken, but because I wanted to understand why I'd trusted the wrong person for so long. I met new people who didn't know my past and didn't need to. Trust, I learned, isn't about time served together. It's about what someone does when there's something to gain by betraying you. Derek disappeared from my daily life completely, but traces of him lingered in quiet updates I never asked for. A former colleague mentioned he'd moved cities. Another said he was freelancing under a different title, avoiding anything that required public trust. No announcements, no redemption arc, just absence. That, more than anything, told me the truth had landed exactly where it needed to. People didn't need to pick sides, they simply stepped away from him. Maya and I never rushed back into what we were. We took months, slow conversations, long walks, boundaries spoken out loud instead of assumed. Eventually, we agreed to try again, not because of history, but because we were finally seeing each other clearly. This time, there were no secrets held by third parties, no loyalty outsourced to best friends. Just honesty, even when it was uncomfortable. Looking back, I realized the betrayal wasn't just about Derek leaking my past. It was about him believing I'd stay quiet to preserve his comfort. He counted on my fear, my professionalism, my instinct to avoid conflict. He mistook restraint for weakness. That's a common error people make when they've never been held accountable in public. They forget that silence is a choice, and choices can change. Spending $50,000 on a billboard wasn't about revenge. It was about control. Control of my story, control of the facts, control of my dignity. I didn't shout. I didn't exaggerate. I didn't destroy anything that wasn't already rotten. I simply turned the lights on and let people see what was there all along. Sometimes that's enough to collapse an entire illusion. He told me my secret was everywhere and that I should deal with it. So I did. I dealt with it by telling the truth, louder, clearer, and in a place no one could ignore. And that was the moment I stopped being the victim of the story and became the author of the ending.